Hello there, and welcome back to St. Thomas Aquinas for Everyone. I'm Dave Palmer, moving through the Summa, almost halfway there, as I explained in the last video, and I want to challenge you with a couple of things while I still have your attention here in the opening seconds. I want to first of all tell you that this is a really important part of the Summa that we're going to discuss today. We have been talking about habits, virtues, and sin. The last video was about habits, and we are going to be moving into this video, which is about virtues. And so no sin in this video, only virtues. All right, but it's very interesting. I want to challenge you, even though this is going to be a little bit longer of a video than I normally do, I challenge you to watch the whole thing for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think unless you're watching the whole thing, you're not really going to understand exactly the whole flow of the Summa. If you're watching a minute here and a minute there, in fact, like I said last time, go back to the beginning. Okay, get out of here. Go back to the beginning and watch them in sequential order. Okay, you have my permission to leave. Well, kind of. If you haven't watched all of them yet, go back and watch the other ones and then catch up. Okay, we'll still be here, I promise. And if you are caught up, watch this whole thing and tell me if this doesn't change the way you live. Because when we talk about virtues, this has to do with everyday life. This is not abstract. This is not some deep philosophical, metaphysical concept. This is everyday life. Okay, so, all right, I'm belaboring that too much. So let's move on and talk about the virtues. Did you know there are a lot of different kinds of virtues? You know that there's theological virtues and there's cardinal virtues. You know that. But you're going to learn something about the virtues in this, I promise you, okay? So the first of all, it's that there are intellectual virtues. And I think when most of us think of virtues, you think of something like this. You know, Mother Teresa, that's not Mother Teresa, by the way, but helping the poor, which is a really good thing to do, or the downtrodden. We're always thinking of doing something, you know, helping the lady across the street or mowing somebody's yard. Okay, these are all very virtuous activities. Or waking up on time, or not eating too many, potato chips. That's virtuous. But you ever thought about virtue just being in the mind, not something that goes out into that we're doing something. It may stay in our head, so to speak, right? And see that lady that she's contemplating right there. But we'll get into that. And also, wisdom is one of the virtues. We know it as a gift of the Holy Spirit, but it's also a virtue. In fact, it's the highest of the intellectual virtues, typically shown by the old man with a white beard and all that. And I'm not going to say too much about this right now, but this is pretty cool that this is a virtue. This is probably something that many of you watching do for a living. You're a scientist. Did you know that if you do science well, that's a virtue? There's a virtue called science. Okay, I gave it away. It's an intellectual virtue. Most people don't know that. There's a lot of things that connect to us in the virtuous life that we do every day that we don't think about. And there will be other examples as well. So Thomas says again, we're in Prima Secunda, the first part of the second part of the Summa, question 57, articles 2 through 4. So this is three different articles. The virtues of the speculative intellect are those which perfect the speculative intellect, a little redundant, for the consideration of truth. So when we consider truth, that can be virtuous, that can be habitual, right? For this, I even have a little graphic here for this. Look at that, okay? The consideration of truth. Now, for this it's good work. Now, a truth is subject to a twofold consideration, as known in itself and as known through another. Okay, what is known in itself is a principle, okay? The first principles of things that we come to know, and when we understand it naturally and it's kind of part of who we are, that's a virtue, right? And we don't have to work on it, okay? And is that once understood by the intellect, wherefore the habit that perfects the intellect for the consideration of such truth is called understanding. How many times a day do we say, oh, I understand that, oh, I didn't understand that? Well, when understanding is a virtue, understanding first principles, then it's one of the intellectual virtues. Okay, I bet you didn't know that. On the other hand, a truth which is known through another, okay, not just first principles, but through another, is understood by the intellect not at once, but by means of the reason's inquiry. Remember discursive, remember the passive and active intellect that we learned about? Remember, go back. Discursive, the way we come to know things little by little. Okay, this is what this is about. And about these, there is wisdom. Okay, so there's a graphic. I'm not showing the old man with a white beard right now. Uh, and the interesting thing, okay, let me see, which considers the highest causes. Now you may think, oh, wisdom seems so abstract, and I don't know if I'm wise or not. Let me show you a picture here. This is something, I saw a butterfly today. You probably see butterflies, depending on the time of the year, on a regular basis. A wise person is able to look at something like this and see the big picture, that the butterfly represents more than just a little flying insect or whatever it is, right? That God created it, and that this is part of a bigger picture, that God has created this amazing world, not to mention the flower as well. Okay, a wise person every single day can exercise wisdom. Okay, that's just one example. Okay, wherefore it rightly judges all things and sets them in order, because there can be no perfect and universal judgment that is not based on the first causes. Remember the proofs for the existence of God? What was the second one? The first cause, the uncaused cause. Okay, and if you're thinking like, oh, I never watched that video, go back and watch that. Okay, do these in sequential order. But in regard to that which is last in this or that genus of noble matter, it is science. Remember I told you a moment ago that we're talking about science, which perfects the intellect. So if you're a scientist, if you're a chemist or a biologist or a botanist or a zoologist, okay, and you do it well, and you tie things together, what you know, with first causes and first principles and first mover and all that kind of stuff, you are exercising virtue. All right? Art, think about that, is the right reason of things to be made. All right, look at that beautiful picture. It looks like Thomas Kincaid or something. I don't know who did this one, but it's beautiful. I think most people look at this and say, wow, that's beautiful. That can elevate your mind to God because it's beautiful. Anything that's beautiful is going to participate in God's beauty, because God is beauty. God is existence, right? We learned that. Okay, I know it's getting annoying. Okay, whereas prudence is the right reason of things to be done. Now, making and doing differ in that making is an action passing on to outward matter, to build, to saw, and so forth, whereas doing is an action abiding in the agent, to see, to will, and the like. Okay, do you see how things that we do every single day, art, science, wisdom, butterflies, decisions that we make on the moral scale, this all has to do with, well, you'll see here in a second, okay? Prudence. Is prudence a virtue necessary to man? Okay, you often have said like, well, that wouldn't be very prudent to do that, or I'm going to make a prudent choice here. I'm going to put a paragraph on here, and it's going to look really long, and your first inclination is to say, I'm out of here. This is too deep, okay? Resist that temptation, okay? Don't leave, okay? Just now, here it is, okay? You're going to say, oh my gosh, crazy. But I'm going to play a little game here, because I'm going to read this relatively quickly, and there's a word that appears in this paragraph 7 times. I want to see if you can notice. Now, it's not like the or a or an article or something like that. It's a deeper word than that. See if you can catch this, okay? I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to emphasize it, but just see this. I'll tell you what the word is. Prudence is a virtue most necessary for human life, for a good life consists in good deeds. Now, in order to do good deeds, it matters not only what a man does, but also how he does it, to wit, that he do it from right choice and not merely from impulse or passion. Okay, you got to have the right choice. And since choice is about things in reference to the end, rectitude of choice requires 2 things, namely the due end and something suitably ordained to that due end. Now, man is suitably directed to his end, his due end, by a virtue which perfects the soul in the appetitive part, the object of which is the good and the end, and to that which is suitably ordained to the due end, man needs to be rightly disposed by a habit of his reason. Consequently, an intellectual virtue is needed in the reason to perfect the reason and make it suitably affected towards things ordained to the end. And this virtue is prudence. Okay. Consequently, prudence is a virtue necessary to lead a good life. Okay, I know that was really wordy, and you're like, oh, come on, man. Okay, did you catch the word? That was mentioned there 7 times. It's very, very important if you're going to understand virtues. There it is. End. What does this have to do with virtues? Okay, our end, and I took the little red things off, our end is beatitude. Our end is coming to know God. I've been talking about that every single video now, right? And so virtue is our way of getting to God. All right, God is drawing us to himself And it can be in things as simple as temperance. Okay, temperance means you eat one hot fudge sundae and not four, but that takes prudence. Okay, it takes a moral virtue of temperance, and it takes the intellectual virtue of prudence to do that. All right, kids getting pressured, hey, have a drink, drink. Okay, this girl's obviously like, no, I don't think so. Okay, that's temperance. It's also prudence, because prudence is coming in and making that decision, and so both of them have to work together. Okay, isn't that cool? All right, whether moral virtues differ from intellectual virtues. Yes, of course. This has to do with temperance. Okay, you want to eat 10 chips and not 40. This is our good old friend wisdom, and obviously they're not the same. They're different types of virtues. One's intellectual and one's moral. For a man to do a good deed, it is requisite not only that his reason be well disposed by means of the habit of an intellectual virtue, but also that his appetite be well disposed by means of a habit of moral virtue. And so moral differs from intellectual virtue, even as the appetite differs from reason. All right, when you see this, it's your sensitive appetite, your concupiscible passion. Remember that one? That draws you to this banana split. Hot fudge sundae. All right, if you have a desire for being confirmed, okay, that's not the same as desiring a hot fudge sundae. That has to do with the will, okay? Remember I said early on, we're complicated. God's simple, we're complicated. We have sensitive appetite, intellectual appetite, will, and passions, and concupiscible, and irascible, and, desires, and we are pretty complicated, okay? Hence, just as the appetite is the principle of human acts, insofar as it partakes of reason, so are moral habits to be considered virtues insofar as they are in conformity with reason. But every moral virtue needs to have an intellectual virtue of prudence. Am I getting ahead of myself? Reason is the first principle of all human acts, and whatever other principle of human acts may be found, they obey reason somewhat, but in various ways. For some obey reason blindly. Okay, here, and without any contradiction whatever, such as the limbs of the body. You go out for a run, you don't say, okay, come on, body, run, don't disobey. As with the chips and the salsa or hot fudge sundaes, the limbs of the body just obey. They don't rebel against. Remember the chariot? And do you remember all that? Okay, I'm going back, all right? As for soon as reason commands, the hand and the foot proceeds to action. All right, and so I think we only have two more articles. Okay, I know this is going a little long. Are you still with me? Whether there can be moral without intellectual virtues. Okay, I'm going to give an example here, okay? I know this is kind of long. Moral virtue can be without some of the intellectual virtues, wisdom, science, and art, but not without understanding and prudence, okay? Moral virtue cannot be without prudence because it is a habit of choosing, making us choose well. Now, in order that a choice be good, two things are required. First, that the intention be directed to a due end. Okay, that the intention, you saw that, okay, hold on. That the intention be directed to a due end, and this is done by moral virtue, which inclines the appetitive faculty to the good that is in accord with reason, okay? I put this graphic up here because I think that all-you-can-eat buffets are just, they're okay if you have virtue, but you got to have that virtue of temperance, or else you're going to eat too much. Okay, so the moral virtue of temperance has to kick in when you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, because there's a great temptation to gluttony, right? Okay, secondly, that man takes rightly those things which have reference to the end, and this he cannot do unless he has reason, counsel, judge, and command aright, and this is the function of prudence and the virtues annexed to it. Have you ever gone to an all-you-can-eat buffet and eaten too much? I have. Guilty. All right, that means that temperance didn't kick in and prudence didn't kick in. They both have to work together in order for the act to be good, because if one or the other is missing, it's not a good action. All right, that is it. All right, are all the moral virtues about the passions? When you think of passions, you think of love, or sex or sexual ethics and that kind of stuff. Certainly has a lot to do with passions. Or maybe you think about anger or frustration, the passions and blah, blah, blah. You think about crazy stuff that some people do, committing crimes and rioting and all that. But what about this? Helping the poor. Okay, that's a moral virtue, all right? But it's not about the passions. It's not, you're not all riled up. You're just doing a good act. All right, this is the last thing that we're going to learn here. Moral virtue perfects the appetitive part of the soul by directing the good as defined by reason. Now, good as defined by reason is that which is moderated or directed by reason. Consequently, there are moral virtues about all matters that are subject to reason's direction and moderation. Now, reason directs not only the passions of the sensitive appetite, but also the operations of the intellective appetite, the will, which is not the subject of a passion. Therefore, not all the moral virtues are about passions, but some are about passions. Some are about operations, like helping the poor, making good decisions, mowing the neighbor's lawn. That's not passion, that is operations. Okay? There's been a lot of material, I admit. Okay, and also going a little bit long. You still with me? You still watching? Thank you. If you're still here, thanks for watching. If you're not still here, well, you're not here to hear what I have to say anyways, so thank you for watching part of the video, whatever part of it you watched. That's going to do it. Habits, virtues, and sin. The next couple of videos, we're going to continue on virtues. Very, very important because it has to do with everyday life. Okay, like I said, this isn't abstract. And then we're going to get into sin, which is the opposite of virtue. And of course, sin can get habitual as well. And that's going to do it. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Hope you're enjoying this. Subscribe, like, send it to your neighbors and your friends and your coworkers. Send it to your mom. Okay, my mom actually watches these. Okay, little known fact, she actually watches these. In fact, if I get any likes or so, you know, that kind of stuff, it's probably my mom. All right. Thank you, Mom, for watching. Now I'll know if she watched because I'll get an email tomorrow saying, hey, I heard you say something about me at the end of the video. If I don't, well, then she stopped watching too. Thanks. God bless you. See you next time.